During this video segment, I will show you how you can update your settings in Church Giving Track. So when you first log in, you'll be at your dashboard. You can go to Settings, and at the top, it asks you for the fiscal year change for your church. Typically, it's going to be either January 1st or July 1st, but it could be something else. The receipt endorser, so that is the individual, and you can override that, but where this comes into play is in reports. If you do receipts by members, notice it has that name right here. So if I do generate receipts for these folks, notice that's the person that endorses every one of those receipts. And again, I showed that you could actually go in and you can override it each time you do it. But that's kind of a pain to have to enter that each time. So here, this would be your default one. Default payment type for entering in would be check versus cash. Name format, first name and then last name, or last then first. Donations date default. Do you want to put a default date in there for the donations that it will default to today? Yes, probably. Number of drop-down results. I believe that's going to be in here. If you do a search, it shows up to 5 at a time. I guess that's really not the drop down. So any place there is drop downs, it would be those. Trying to think where that might be right now, to be honest with you, but not sure where that comes into play. During this video segment, I will show you how you can update your settings in Church Giving Track. They are found under Settings, and at the top here, this is where you can change your fiscal year change. So if it's January 1st or July 1st. The endorser, this comes into play with your receipts. So if you want to generate receipts, notice we could leave this blank and you just have to enter it each time. But instead, what we do is, let's click on that again. That comes from right here. So again, if I come to reports and I do this, it'll bring in John's name. And what that does, by the way, is then when I generate these receipts, John would be the one that would sign each of those receipts. So if you leave that blank, then it's just going to leave it blank in that other screen too. Default payment type, so when they add a payment, they can choose check or cash, but it's going to default to check. As far as for names, it's going to have first name first, then last, but you could change it if you want to. If you want to have a default date for each donation that you enter, that it defaults to today. Number of drop-down results. So in the donations, for instance, if I want to choose a fund, it shows 5 of them at a time. Or if I start typing in names, it'll show 5 at a time. And that actually is coming from this setting right here. If you change a bunch of these and you decide you want to restore it to the defaults, you can do that. See, notice what it did is it took John's name out here. So let's go ahead and add that in back again. And the other thing is you can look at user action log. This will show you all your users and what they did, at what time, and what they did. So you have a really nice historical case things get messed up. You can see why that happened and so forth. Time frames. So when we generate reports, I could say, for instance, I want to see the giving for the past week. Notice it's the 19th today. It put in the 12th, the past month. Did August 19th, past year. So this is where you can set those time frames up. And you can have 3 time frames. You can edit it, and you can call it whatever you want. So if you want to say something like past 6 weeks, you could do that. And so then instead of 7 days, maybe you want to say, well, 7 times or 6 weeks would be 42 days, would be 6 weeks. And let's cancel that, bring it back to what it was. So a past week is 7 days, 0 months, 0 years, and so forth. So you can only have 3 of them, but you can edit any of these. These are the defaults, and you can rename them to whatever you want and specify the days, months, and years for each of those. You can make them inactive too if you only want to have 2 of them as an example. This is where you can add in your funds. So these are the funds that people can give to. So I can add in those funds. I can put in the budgeted goals. I can say whether it's active or inactive and what order I want them to be in. Or I can edit any of these funds as well. If I want to delete one, I can click edit to deactivate it as well. Confirm just confirms the changes that I had. And then finally, the last setting here is the users themselves. So this is where you can add in users of the software itself. Those users can be admins who have full access to the entire software, or they can just be users that are not admins, like John here, where he has read access to the entire software. So this concludes the video on the settings.